I knew this would all come back and I'd have to do it and backtrack in the end, but I could not get the shocks to line up with the triple tree. Look, I only have the bottom one on, but trying to jam them up in there with the fender connected, it was just not lining up right. It just was not easily going in. So we're going to do this the right way in the end. So I did loosen up my pinch bolts here, and I guess at this point might as well just take the axle out as it is intended, and then we can line up these shocks as they're supposed to be and put this guy all back together. All right. I think the bolts on the fender were 6mm hex. We had 12mm on the pinch bolts here, and I used my adjustable wrench to get this bolt out. There it is. This bolt out of this side, and now this guy is going to come right off the axle. So there we go. Hopefully, I know this will feed right up in there pretty easily this time. Now that we got that off, we need to somehow get this guy back on and lined up with this. So there's not any way to tell, I guess. It just goes on and we have to line it up. So anyway, I'm going to take some steel wool, clean this up a little bit, clean up in here a little bit, and then slide that down over there. Obviously this is backwards. And then make sure that we're in complete alignment. Maybe I can use the fork to make that happen. And then I've looked at all my other bikes, and I guess as long as they're equal, you see, this could have been off too. This could have been a reason I had a shake. If this was knocked a little bit crooked at any point, that could have been causing a shake. So hopefully everything we do here is right, and we don't have any vibrations or dead spot in the turning. I got her down on here, and she's resting pretty comfortably. And I just don't know how to tell what is straight. I mean, this has a stopper at the bottom, so that's fine. Guess we'll have to trial and error it. Because look, I can turn this separate of this. I wish there was some sort of notch or something that told me where to put it. Then I wouldn't have to question anything. But I guess these are the things that you hire a tech for. Here is our washer that goes down on top of there. And then we have our cap bolt right there. And then torque spec on that is 10.5 Newton meters or 76 foot-pounds. That's got to hold everything together. So get that started. And as I said, gotta line all these on this sucker up. Come on. Okay, well, what I did was left this bolt open. So that's not tightened down. So this could swerve and move. And basically just use this. Like once that's through the bottom and into the top, this thing can't really go back and forth. So I just lined it up just a little hair over the top triple tree here. And same thing over here. This cap is a little off, so I need to torque that down. I think I opened it for fun, but need to torque that down anyway. So just this tube itself, I just got it right in, basically level with the triple tree. Maybe this one's a little higher. I'll make sure I did tighten these down, didn't torque them, but I think we should be straight. If all is well, then we're good. And I just probably knocked it out of shape. So anyway, right there is where I'm happy with it. I think I'm just gonna look at it a little more, make sure that I am happy with that. And then basically we just put the front wheel back on after we torque these down, put the handlebars back on, torque this down first. Once I'm happy with everything, yeah, you can see this needs to be twisted. So we're getting there. So here I did what any guy would do. I got out my torque wrench and I was going to try and torque these down to proper specs. Here, here, and here. And then I just tightened them down as tight as I could, reasonably. So seems to be working good. Line these up as perfect as I could. Just below the cap, you can see the fork tube, but I think it's even. We're gonna go for it. Now, gotta put the wheel back on, throw it in there, put a little grease on it. I'll put a little grease on it, and then reassemble everything else. Once I get this wheel on, we just gotta put the axle through from the right side, or the left side once I flip it around. And then make sure that spacer's in there the right way. Has a little lip on it. I think that faces out. And then everything's lined up perfectly. It should be. And tighten these guys down. Put the cap on the end of the thing there. And then, oh, the fender needs to go back on. And these are the fender suckers. So that goes on one side, like that. And then the other one has this for the brake line. So that goes there, there, right there. And then I'll do that too. All right, guys, just a quick tip. Don't tighten down your fender, because we're putting this all back together in original fashion. If you tighten down your fender, it's going to be pulling in, keeping this thing in place, and your axle might line up. So now I loosened the fender up again, and I was able to pop that axle right through. If it's fighting you, something's not lining up, and you need to adjust it. So I was pounding on it, and I knew it wasn't right. So I backed off, like I said, loosened these up, and this will spin. Like, you can turn the bottom here into place. So everything lined up perfectly. Now we're gonna put the nut cap back on. Where did that go? I don't see it. It's here. And then, oh, it's over here. So I greased everything up. Now we're gonna clean this up and drive this back into there, right there. And then we can tighten these guys down. And then we have to put the brake caliper back on and then reassemble the top end. Wheels back on. When you're tightening down your nut over here, make sure you torque it to spec. I don't even know what the spec is. It's tight. You can hold it with this handy dandy little hole that they put in the axle. Then tighten down your pinch bolts to spec. Now, I realized when I put this back on, I ran these back up through, all my wires, lines, and everything, I wasn't even thinking about those, so I don't even know where they run. We're gonna do a new map. I ended up taking all this stuff off the handlebars just to make it easier to get them back on. Yep, could have done it in the beginning, but here we are, back together. Need to find the nuts for the bottom of this. I'm sure they're somewhere. Put the nuts back on. It'll be easy to do now that there's no headlight bucket. I even forgot there was no headlight. So all that has to be mounted back here. Right now we have our handlebars in place. So coming back together. I hope this thing is all good, because if not, might just pay somebody else to do it. Let's hope that everything's good. Hey, look, I remembered there was a headlight bucket. And when you put that on, make sure you don't remember, or you don't forget to put on this bracket for the brake line. And I put the caliper back on. Tighten that on these two 12mm bolts. Your 10mm bolts under here, right there. See them? And then that whole hose, that's gonna mount back up to the handlebars, but we're probably gonna loosen these handlebars up in the end to get this apparatus back on there too. That's the throttle tube and that stuff. So we're getting there. Let's see. I need to get all my wires back into here, which here's most of them. And then, yeah, so those got to go in there. What else do we have hanging out? I guess these have to go in there too. All these wires have to be jammed back up in there so we can reattach them. There's our headlight attachment. So I'm going to work on getting those wires up through. We're getting there. All right, if you need to figure out which turn signal goes on which side, the left is orange, so that leaves blue for the right side. All the wires that come from the gauges plug in down here. There's a cover here, so you don't have to worry about that. You can swap out gauges when you want. I need to tighten those down. And then these wires go into the headlight bucket. There's a couple more hanging out here that I need to plug in, and those colors will match right up. Then we'll make all these guys fit in there nicely. And then we have basically all this put back together. These little bolts hold the headlight in. So then all we really need to do is put back the handlebars. I did go ahead. I was going to try and bend this back into shape, but not too worried about it now. Still works. And if everything works when I put it back together, I could always steal gauges off of something else if I really wanted to. This actually needs to... No, I did tighten that down. Well, whatever. I could put on another set of gauges. I have them. So anyway, just matching up all these guys, all the same colors, and then we'll get that on. We're getting there, we're getting there. All right, friends. Well, if I didn't say it before, make sure before you put your front end on and put stuff together that your hoses and cables are routed in the right spots. I had to disconnect this to get it. It was like in behind here, and it was, every time I put it on here, it wasn't working. It was all binding up. So it's got to go behind your headlight and then up through this hanger here. Also, brake line. I had to disconnect my brake line because it was just down here. I attached to here. I thought I was gonna be fine. Nope, it's got to go up behind here and then run through this hanger here and then also through here. So just make sure that you're not going to have issues running your stuff. We also have this guy. Now he easily comes out of the back of the speedometer cable, but make sure you know where all your stuff runs. I'm not sure. I don't think that needs to go through anything. Just kind of goes in between the lower triple clamp and then up through there. So like I said, make sure everything is routed correctly. Wires you can kind of unplug and put in correctly, but these are a little more difficult. So now hopefully our steering issue solved and our vibration, if it wasn't tied to that. Everything is set up correctly now. Oh, the other thing, your speedo cable, this little guy right here, that needs to be right there. There's a notch on top. I had it facing downward, so the cable didn't have enough room. It was just kind of down. Didn't have enough room to run up here and plug in. So I had to loosen this bolt, and then that comes free and I could turn it up to where it needed to be. So just be careful. And this is also a good time to check your cables and lube them up. These look crappy, but I think they still work. I don't think they're gonna fail on me. But the one thing that did fail, see, I dropped these guys so I could get everything mounted correctly. The one thing that is failing, which I ordered a new one, is this clutch cable. It's starting to fray on the end. So I went on eBay and grabbed a new one. You can see it's starting to fray. And I did lube that up real good. I disconnected it from the bottom and pulled it back and forth. And I just ordered a new one, but I want to put this back together and see that it runs. So next thing I'll do is put these cables back on, mount our throttle tube, put the brakes back together. That's gonna have to be pumped up a bit. Hopefully there's not too much air in there and I can easily get it back out. It shouldn't be hanging like this because it will leak. Yep, there you see, it's leaking. So, just be very careful as you're going through your bike. When you put the front end, take the whole front end off, you got to remember that all these cables and stuff have to go somewhere. So, almost there. I'll bring you back when it's done. I figured this might be a good time to get a good look at the bike. Make sure everything's working. Turn signals, marking lights, headlights on. I left the clutch stuff off because I need to get that new cable. I'll put it on if I want to ride it, of course. But for now, everything else is pretty much hooked up. Let's see. Yep, high and low beams. Is this my turn signal? Turn signal works here. And at the rear. I don't know if I hooked up the horn. Horn works. Left. Blinking in the rear. Not too sure. I'll have to check my connections. The light works here, but it doesn't want to. Something needs addressed there. Should have checked all this stuff before I put this back together. Maybe the bulb's just burnt. I don't know. So that's the electrical stuff. Since this was disconnected, this will go to the handlebar. I may need to bleed it. Oh, starting to firm up a little bit. Yep, starting to firm up now. Okay, there we go. Brake came back to me. Now, the other thing, I'm going to order new cables for this too because they're cruddy. And the return doesn't click back, which is probably due to this cable. This is my adjuster and it doesn't look great. So if I can adjust it down low, well, I don't know if I trust it. So anyway, just remember you need to turn it back. So yeah, we'll get some new cables. Hopefully, get her out on the road. She needs to run. Oh yeah, we need to check brakes. Foot brake works. Guys, Vance and Hines. Ah, she stinks in here. Alright, so get my cables. We'll take her out for a spin. I'll take you along for that. Everything's working except for that turn signal, which could just be, oh, now it's working. Well, keep an eye on that. Temperature light does work, it's just way down in there. Got knocked around in the wreck. Alright, she's back together. Next video on this bike should be riding it. See if we took care of the vibration and the turning issue. I'll see you guys on the next one. Get out and ride.